Hi.
Yeah.
Hey Maria, how are you?
I'm good. Mas,
Bentar,
matiin lagunya mas. Bentar.
gua sisiran dulu. Belum sisiran. Sinta.
Yep.
Ini nanti awal si Claudia bisa presentasi ya?
Jam 9 ya.
Jam 9. Oke. Ya wis.
Because we're gonna
Yeah.
do this first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Betul. Oke, thank you.
Yeah. So I have the agenda. Oh, bentar gue kirim sama lo ya.
Yeah.
I have the agenda for tonight. Ada di Messenger, Greg, agenda.
Di Messenger. Ya, udah baca sih. Oke.
Itu
Ntar aku.
presentasi itu maksudnya si Claudia.
Iya.
Buat teman-teman yang nonton di grup Indonesian American for Biden Harris, selamat datang. We are going to start very soon. So the first, actually not the first, the live conversation is going to be with Ingrid Moroy. I hope I say the name right. But we're going to be talking to Ingrid about how to run for office and how to get involved in politics. So it's going to be like an educational and then sort of like an information sharing for us. And then it's about half an hour. We're going to make it short and sweet. And there will be a little bit of time for question and answering with everybody. But we're going to try to listen to Ingrid what she has to share. Dan Ingrid ini adalah orang Indonesia, ini orang dari Suriname yang keturunan Indonesia, Chinese, black and white. So I think it's going to be great to listen to Ingrid dan juga mungkin bisa menjadi inspirasi untuk teman-teman yang mau run for office or maybe even just to be involved locally in your politics. Jadi nggak melulu just posting on social media, but maybe get involved a little bit more in a more effective way or in a more productive way. So mungkin kalau ada yang mau tanya di comment, we'll try to accommodate and moderate. Yeah. We're also going to be recording this. Did I record it already? Yep, it's recording, and then we will be sharing also this conversation on our YouTube channel. So welcome everybody. The regional coordinators for the Indonesian American Democrats going to be meeting right after this. So if anybody watching in the group, if you want to be a part of the regional coordinator, what does it mean regional? Regional means that you are coordinating in your own region. Jadi kalau misalnya tinggal di daerah Seattle seperti Greg, dan kemudian Mariono, dan kemudian Rio, itu nanti your coordinating is just in that area. So what does it mean to coordinate? It's really just to coordinate with your community. Gitu. Jadi it's volunteer. This is people who have the heart to help the community while we're waiting. So gitu aja sih. So if you do want to be part of the regional coordinators, you can let us know. The formular is in the group, but you can also message any of the admins in the group. I see Mbak Dewita is here.
Yeah, let me call Ingrid. Maybe she forget.
Great, because we can just start and then everybody else can join as they, as they.
Okay. She hasn't come in. Belum ya? Belum kan?
I'm not sure. Who is Rachel?
I don't know.
Right? Like Ingrid should be her name, right?
It should be. Let me check. Just 1 second.
No worries.
That's Ingrid. I see Ingrid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Rachel is Robert.
Oh, Rachel is Robert.
Sorry, my wife used mine early on.
Oh, I see Rachel. Great.
Rachel, Robert, deket kok.
Padahal mau diajak kenalan barusan tuh Rachel. Iya.
I know. I was like,
Gagal deh.
Rachel.
Gagal.
Is this someone new? All right, should we just get started?
Yeah.
Devita and Mike, we can get started. We are recording, so then we can be like sensitive of everybody's time. Hi, Ingrid. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Great. We can hear you great. You
Thanks
can
for having me.
Yes. We are so
Hi.
honored you join us. Let me stop the sharing. So we are recording this and then we'll put it on YouTube so then anybody can, oh, my video is off. There we go. We're going to be recording this and then we'll share it on our YouTube so then anybody can also access this video later. Right now, we are live on the Indonesian American or Biden Harris in our Facebook group. It's a private group, but we want to do this kind of conversation, Ingrid, just so then it will be informational and educational for people. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's just get started. We do have our regional coordinator meeting after this, so I am going to just open this. Let me just spotlight. Okay. As everybody's coming in, joining us on Zoom, I know a couple people is already watching us on the Facebook Live in our group. Good evening, everybody. It's already 8:32 p.m. here in the East Coast, and I know is about 5:30 p.m. in Pacific, and I know Hawaii. I know some people are joining from Hawaii too. So welcome. Thank you. We like to do this sort of conversation in our community so that we can get resources, information, and education on just different things involving civic engagement and just the political climate in the US, especially what does it mean for our community, the Indonesian Americans living in the US. So I would like to welcome our guest, Ingrid, but before we get to meet Ingrid, I would like to welcome Mbak Dewita, who is the trailblazer. I call her trailblazer in our community, to introduce Ingrid. Mbak Dewita knows Ingrid more than any of us. So please, Mbak Dewita, it is now your turn. You have the floor.
Hello, selamat malam teman-teman. Good evening, everyone. Ingrid is like my sister from another mother and father. Anyway, Ingrid Muroy is the Arlington County Commissioner of Revenue. She is a musician, an author performer of political parody and campaign songs. That is true. Ingrid was elected to the Arlington Commissioner of Revenue in November 2003. Before that, she served as Arlington Deputy Commissioner for 8 years. So what I really like about Ingrid is the motto at her office has been, when customers call us, they're not interrupting our busy workday. They are the reason we are here. So over the years, Ingrid has implemented customer service initiatives to make it easy for Arlingtonians to do business with the county. So if you're not familiar with the Arlington County, Arlington is home to the Pentagon, the Arlington Cemetery, and soon to be the new home for Amazon HQ2. Population is estimated about 236,000, very diverse, 8% is Asian American, and making it Arlington the 6th largest county in Virginia. So please welcome my sister Ingrid.
Thank you very much, Devita. And I just saw Michael Dompas. I know him. In DC. Like Devita said, we consider ourselves sisters. Just a little bit about my background before I talk a little bit about political activities and how I got to run for office and what it took to run as an underdog. First, my background, my heritage, as Devita and Michael know, is part Indonesian, part Chinese, part Black, part white. And it is like this. My mother was born in Indonesia, of an Indonesian mother and a Dutch father. So she was considered Indo, what they call Indo in the Netherlands. My father was born and raised in Suriname of a Chinese mother. My grandmother was actually part Chinese. Her father was from Hong Kong, and her mother was half Chinese, half Black. So that's where the Black comes in. And my paternal grandfather, my father's father, was actually the son of a former slave, because my great-grandfather had been a slave as a child, and he became free with his mother and his 2 brothers. And he married, he was half Black, half white, and he married a Jewish woman. So my grandfather on my father's side is actually Jewish. So it's not just multiculturalism that's in me, but also religiosity, because my grandmother, of course, my Indonesian grandmother was Muslim. My Dutch grandfather was Dutch Reformed. My mother was baptized Catholic and was raised as a Catholic. My father was Dutch Reformed, although his mother was Catholic and his father was Jewish. So that made me agnostic. Because in Suriname, growing up in Suriname, we grew up around a lot of different ethnic groups and a lot of different religions. And we celebrated those religious holidays like Holi Padwa, which is Hindu, Eid al-Fitr, Christmas, of course, and Jewish holidays. So it became confusing for me, and I thought it's just easy to believe in a superpower, but not necessarily organized religion. Schooling, my sister and I have a twin sister, by the way. Michael knows her. I have a twin sister who, she and I were both born in the Netherlands, because after Indonesian independence, my father, who had joined the army through the Dutch colonial organization, ended up in Indonesia. That's where he met my mother. They got married. My older sisters were born in Indonesia and in Singapore. And Judith and I, my twin and I, were born in the Netherlands after my parents had moved to the Netherlands after Indonesian independence. We lived in the Netherlands for a total of 10 years. Judith and I were 9 years old when we left the Netherlands. Growing up in the Netherlands was not easy because back in the day, in the 1950s, the first non-white immigrants were Indonesians and people of Indos and people of Indonesian descent and Moluccans. Those were the first immigrants of color into the Netherlands. So it wasn't pleasant for us in school there. Going to Suriname, however, that became paradise because we were accepted by everyone. There were a lot of people who looked like us, who were mixed like us. There were also Black people, Indian people, white people, East Indian people, all sorts of colors you still see in Suriname. So I went to furthered my education in Suriname and also spent a year in Venezuela, taught school for 3 years in Suriname as a teacher of Spanish. And then I immigrated to the United States. I started my career, I wanted to continue in teaching, but I understood that teaching in America is not as easy and as highly respected as it was in Suriname, although I think it should be, because I think that teachers should be the best paid civil servants. That's still my opinion. Anyway, so I started my career in banking. I had to re-educate myself here because in America, not many people knew where Suriname was and how they should evaluate my degree. So I got a bachelor's degree and an MBA, stayed in banking and ended up as an assistant vice president in an international organization, in an international bank, a Jordanian bank, actually, Petrobank. And then in the early 90s, the first Gulf War broke out, and I got so upset with politics in America that I had to get away. And I thought, where shall I go now that I have an American passport? So I decided to go to the Virgin Islands. I lived there for 2 years. Then I came back when Bill Clinton won the election. I came back and got back into banking. And in 1996, I got a job at the Treasurer's office in Arlington. The Treasurer is an elected official. He's the tax collector for Arlington. And he needed a deputy treasurer. So I applied, and he was actually looking for somebody with a banking degree and somebody who spoke Spanish. And I happened to have been a teacher of Spanish, so that helped. Because of my job in the Treasurer's office, I became politically active with the Arlington Democrats. I started as a precinct captain, which is the most important job in local politics, is precinct captain, because you are organizing your precinct with the help of activists, and you basically organize block by block. It's the oldest way of organized political activity. So I became a precinct captain in 1999, I think. And then I became secretary of the Arlington Democrats. I don't think they have that position anymore because everything is online now. But back in the day, I did the minutes, and we did an actual printed directory of all the members of the party. In 2001, I think I became precinct operations chair. And what that meant was I had to organize all the precinct captains to make sure that they got the proper training and to make sure that they got the necessary assistance to do their jobs as organizers in their precinct. In 2002, the treasurer said to me, "You should run for Commissioner of Revenue." Now, the Commissioner of Revenue in Arlington is the tax assessor. So my office decides what the value is of your property. And I told him, "No, it's a boring office. I'm gonna run for treasurer when you retire." He says, "No, this is a better opportunity for you, because if you become a Commissioner of Revenue, every little change that you make is going to make a big difference." And I thought, yeah, maybe, because that office was not well managed. So it was I organized for John Kerry, who ran in 2002. Was it, who ran in 2000 for president?
2004. 2004, Carrie Edwards,
2002. Was it
Howard Deep.
Al? It was Al Gore, of course.
I'll go.
It was Al Gore, I think. I don't know. No, I don't remember. In any case, I was organizing the precincts, and I had actually recruited one former county board member and one current county board member. The current county board member is now State Senator Barbara Favola. I had recruited them to be precinct captains, and the former county board member, Joe Holy, I called him because he wanted to do a certain assignment on election day. So I called him on Sunday afternoon and I said, the report's going to be there. What time will you be there? 6 o'clock, blah, blah. So we hung up, and then I picked up the phone again to call another precinct captain, and he called me at the same time. So I said, oh, did I forget something? And then he said, no, I just wanted to tell you, you should run for Commissioner of Revenue. And I said, did you talk to my boss, the treasurer? And he said, no. I've seen how you organize, so you should run for Commissioner of Revenue. I said, okay, I'll think about it. So I talked to Jerry, my husband, about it. And Jerry says, I think you should do it because if you don't make it, you will still have a job as a deputy treasurer. So that's how I decided to run. Now, running for officer, I already told you why Commissioner of Revenue, not treasurer. Frank O'Leary, the then treasurer, thought that Commissioner of Revenue would be a better fit for my skills. So, but the basic difference between the two offices is my office is the assessor, and the treasurer's office is the collector. The most important skill that I found, first of all, to run for office, you have to surround yourself with people who are going to help you to win. Experienced people who, not necessarily experienced people who have worked on campaigns, but experienced people who know how to activate voters. So basically precinct captains. And because I had recruited a lot of precinct captains, they were basically my only support within the county, the Democratic, and I'm going to use the word establishment, those 100 to 300 people who were active in the party back then. The establishment in those days, most of them are no longer in the party structure. They're still very good Democrats, but they're no longer precinct captains, and they don't really have any, because the party basically has been taken over by younger people, which is what I had always wanted. Younger people should take over from the rest of us who are, close to retirement. Anyway, some of the challenges that I found though, because I was running as an underdog and as a minority, racial minority, as an immigrant, person of color, and I was running against a very well-known opponent who was working in the commissioner's office, and we were very good friends. Then we became not so good friends after I won, but now we're friends again because that's politics. And so my opponent was very, very well known as a Democrat, and she had many endorsements, including the then congressman and his brother. Luita probably knows who I'm talking about, Jim Moran and Brian Moran. Even they supported her. And I even went to the congressman's house. He lived in Arlington, and I asked him to please stay out of a local race because it wouldn't be fair to me. I was less known. And he said, well, I'm not going to endorse either one of you. But then he supported my opponent. And I can understand it because again, that's politics. And when you have friends in high places, they're going to support you. I didn't have friends in high places. I only had my boss and Frank Wilson, who was on the school board. And later on, Barbara Favola, who was still on the county board then. So, and like I said, the other challenge that I had, being an ethnic minority, I could feel the bias, and I was running in a Democratic primary. So I was knocking on Democratic doors, and that was a challenge because even though they say Arlington is very liberal and Arlington is very tolerant, there is bias. And I felt I should write a book about it, really. The other big challenge was fundraising. Fundraising is a difficult thing to do, and you have to do it yourself as a candidate, always. And the other one, like I said, volunteers. It helped me that I had been a precinct operations chair, because I had a lot of precinct captains who helped me. So how did I overcome these challenges? And these are just general tips that any person who's an underdog, not necessarily a person of color, but any underdog who wants to run for office can get something out of this. You need a better program of initiatives. And because I knew what the problems were in the commissioner's office, I basically wrote a program. It was 20 pages long, 8 by 11, and I bound it so I could give it to people who were not convinced that I would be the best commissioner of revenue. So I had a better program of initiatives. I came up with a lot of ideas. Secondly, I worked harder than my opponents. I knocked on 11,414 doors during the Democratic primary season, and that was within 5 months. Of course, it helps to have a dedicated husband. He drove me around, and he's darker skinned than I. He's from Suriname, darker skinned than I, so he can also tell you some stories about what it was like to drive into mostly white neighborhoods in Northern Arlington, and how they treated him when he was waiting in the car with a map while I was knocking on doors. Very interesting stories. And you overcome those things, because I kept saying to myself, I'm the better candidate, I'm the better candidate. You have to have a lot of self-confidence. I had the ability, and I think all of us, especially immigrants, when your own culture, and when you're dealing with a new culture, when you come into the United States or you've lived elsewhere, you have the ability, you will get the ability to connect with voters at different levels. So I took advantage of it, because when people said, so are you Latino? Are you Latina? I would say, no, I'm this and this and this. And I don't mind when people ask me where you're from. I'm happy to talk to them about where I'm from and where Suriname is and what my heritage is, because these are points of connection with people. So I have a twin that helped also, because this one voter had seen me performing with my twin, and she said, oh, I've seen you perform. You're twins, right? Yeah, I have twins. And then they would say, I'm going to vote for you. I'm so excited you're a twin. And then there were other voters who said, I'm so excited, I saw your musical performance. I'm a musician, or my daughter's a musician. And I even had people who, there was a restaurant owner in Westover. I think Eric was his name. I think he moved to Alexandria eventually. He was half Indonesian, half European. So, and he asked me where I was from, because he could detect an accent. So we started talking, and he says, of course I'm going to vote for you, because you have Indonesian heritage. So those things helped me. And I also took advantage of my twin sister. We would go and play in senior centers, and after the performance, I would quickly say, by the way, I'm running for Commissioner of Revenue, this and this and this I'm going to do. And then the directors, or the person in charge of the community center, these are Arlington public centers, you're not supposed to talk politics. They would say, you're not supposed to talk politics. And I would apologize, because I thought, I've already said it. So I would apologize. Sorry, it won't happen again. So I basically used my ethnicity and my cultural background to my advantage. And some people feel like you shouldn't do that, but if it's the truth, it's the truth. This is who I am. So that's what I did. Eventually, I think it was June 9th was the primary. I won the primary by about 265 votes out of 7,900 cast. So it was pretty tight. It was a tight race. And we knew it would be a tight race, because my opponent was so well known. Like the Rita read, the mission statement of our office, everything we do, now I had to actually tell people, prove to people that what I told them during the campaign, I was actually going to do. So everything we do in that office, we do with publicity in mind. whenever, and I told staff this, whenever we send out an email, do we want that email to become public? Because emails to customers, customers can share it with Arl Now or with the Sun Gazette or with anybody on TV if they have a complaint about my office. So everything we do in that office, we do with publicity in mind. Do I want this to become public? Do I want to say this to a customer? Now, the one thing that I mind they complain to the press about is the fact that I make sure that I protect and defend my staff, because after 2016, when Trump won, the demeanor of a lot of customers became so hideous and so offensive that I had to do something, because I needed my staff to feel that I was going to support them if they get offensive customers. So I ban customers if they use offensive language. I ban them. We call the police. We call 911 to come and pick up the customer or arrest the customer if they don't want to leave, because it's important for staff to know that we support them. Honesty will always silence critics. So if we make a mistake in the office, and that same attitude I instilled in my staff, because honesty will silence the critics, and if we make a mistake, a public apology goes a long way. And I think that any politician needs to learn that. Now, my office is not as political as being in the House of Delegates or in the Senate or even on the county board, but because it's an administrative position. But politics comes into play because we do have to lobby for tax changes in Richmond. But another one of my missions is the buck stops here, and that means if a staff member makes a mistake, I'm ultimately responsible for everything that happens in that office. I hope I'm not talking too much. I just want to talk a little bit about political activism. Political activism, I'm still at a loss for why so many Americans do not vote in local and state elections, which is where it really counts. Most voters vote only in presidential elections. The federal government doesn't affect us as much as local and state, especially state, because cities and towns are not in the Constitution. States are, and you can tell because in many states, like Virginia, we have the Dillon Rule, which means that anything a city or a county wants to do, we need permission from the state, which means that state elections become probably the most important elections. We shouldn't think that criminal justice reform is going to emanate from the White House, because it's only 1%, I think, of prisoners are federal prisoners. The rest are state and local inmates. And that's where reform takes place. Voting rights, it's not gonna help us to complain to the president. No, voting rights happens in the state. So if we want to get people their voting rights back, for example, former prisoners, if we want them to get their voting rights back, that's not gonna happen at the federal level. It happens at the state level. Look what Virginia has been able to accomplish after we took over the House of Delegates and the Senate. And now we have the House of Delegates, the Senate, and we have the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the AG. That's how change is made. Taxation happens at the state level. Inequality, how Black people, for example, get treated. Those changes happen at the state level. Immigration issues, how immigrants get treated or mistreated, change happens at the state level. So I think that, I fight with some of my staff members even who say, I'm only voting for president. No, you should vote in every election, in every, from the school board to the governor in the state, even in primaries and school board caucuses, because school board members don't run for nominations, they run for party endorsements. So you vote in everything, just vote in everything, even dog catcher, just vote in everything. So I want to leave it at that because I just want to make sure that people hear, that people can hear that Virginia was able to make these changes at the state level because we found it important to vote at the state level. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, so there's a couple questions. I think we have time a little bit. And then if anybody want to ask questions, please just drop it in the chat. I saw that Michael Dompas asked, since you mentioned about state election, do you foresee running for state elected office?
That's a very interesting question. If I were to run for a statewide office, it would be governor because the governorship is also an administrative position. And I'm more interested in administrative management positions rather than legislative, because being a legislator is very difficult. It's a lot that they have to contend with. But that would be the only position that I would be interested in. But I'm not interested in running for statewide office. I would have to move to Richmond.
Yeah. So I have a questions. I didn't see any other questions, but let me ask this question. You mentioned about fundraising.
Mhm.
And what people are thinking when they're running for an office, maybe for us, for someone like me, probably just thinking, yeah, run for office. I have support from the community. I have support from, I don't know, maybe local officials already. But what is the fundraising really like when you run for office? Do you have to have your own funding? And then what's the fundraising? What's that money for?
Oh, that's a very good question. You have, especially in a primary, because the way we do it in Arlington, in the primary, you're on your own. Once you win the primary, then you become part of a joint campaign. And then you pay the joint campaign, I don't know exactly how much the fee is, but you pay a fee to the joint campaign. I don't know, is it $500, Delita? I'm not sure. But then the joint campaign takes care of all the advertising. In the primary, though, you're on your own. So I had to raise money because I wanted to print my program, the 20-page program. I had to pay for the website. I had to pay for brochures to give out to people at, those 11,414 households that I knocked on. So I had to leave a brochure in every door when people weren't home. And then you also have to do mailers. People's candidates still do mailers, although a lot is done through social media. But in 2003, there was no social media. We had email, but we didn't have. I never had an email list. So I did mail. So the mailers that cost money, printing the mailers, and then the cost of the mail. And then you have to have fundraisers. So for fundraisers, you have to buy the food and if you have and drinks. And if you have a caterer, I didn't have a caterer because I didn't raise a lot. I raised 45,000, I think. I raised less than my opponent did. So money isn't everything, but it's important.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I mean, that sometimes we only think about running, but we don't even really think about like what's the sort of behind the scene and the operational things that you have to worry about.
Right.
So there's one more question here from our coordinator from Minnesota. So we have people from all over here. The question is, how do you get started? I'm interested in running for my district's county commissioner. Should I ask from the local Democratic organization?
Yes, if your local Democratic committee is active, you can, a lot of people, and I think it helps, get active in the local party, and then ask them for the nomination. Now, I don't know what the nomination process is going to be where you are, but in Arlington, we do primaries. We have decided for the county board, county commission in your locality to always do always do primaries except for the school board. So for you to get known, it helps if you get involved in your Democratic committee because you get your name out. So that's the best way to start. And do some work if you have time. Do some work for the Democratic Committee, like precinct captain or helping with phone banks for other candidates, etc., etc. And then when you decide to run, you just get up there and do your speech and why you're running and why you're the best candidate to be in that position, and ask for the nomination, of course. Ask for people's votes, of course.
Great. Thank you so much, Ingrid. So, like, one more question, not related to politics, but related to the Indonesian heritage. I don't know if anybody's wondering too. So, you know what part of Indonesia is your family from?
Yeah, my mother was born in Magelang,
Oh, Magelang.
in Java, and her mother came from south of there. I forgot the name of the village. And my sister, one of my older sisters, my oldest sister was also born in Magelang. And the other one, Carmelita, I think Devita knows Carmelita, was born in Jakarta. And then my other sister was born in Singapore because for some reason they ended up in Singapore after the war. My parents ended up in Singapore for a while. My father was in the Dutch colonial military in Indonesia. So they spoke my father spoke the language, and so did my mother, but I never learned the language, which is unfortunate. I wish I had.
Wow.
I know the food though.
Thank you so much. This is so great. But Devita, do you have any other thing you want to add to Ingrid?
Yeah, Ingrid brought a good point. Precinct operations. Precinct is where you actually learn to organize. That's how I got started. I became a precinct captain. I was in charge of 250 households. You have to learn to raise money, knock on doors, drop literature. So this is about community organizing. Obama was a community organizer. That's how he won. He knows how to mobilize the community. So anybody interested in running, I think that's where you should start.
Community organizing, yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to give a chance to Michael. I know, Michael, I don't know if you have time or not, or I know you're like driving. I don't want to distract you. Are you mute right now? Do you want to say something?
Michael?
Hi, sorry, yes, I'm driving, but I just want to thank Ingrid also. Haven't seen you in a long time. I mean, I remember going to Ingrid's office, so excited to have, an Indonesian, partly Indonesian person in an elective position in the area. So I was really excited. And of course, I know Judith, her twin sister, really well. And, and we share our Dutch heritage as well. So it was really great. Thank you, Ingrid, for sharing your experiences with us. Very, very helpful.
Thank you. And we have to thank Michael because often he has come to Virginia to help us. This is when we were still a purple state. And Michael came from
That's true.
help us in Virginia.
Yes.
So Ingrid, thank you. Hopefully, when the pandemic is over, the Indonesian American Democrats can maybe compete with you. Maybe you'll run for state.
She likes gado-gado, so tempe, tahu, gado-gado.
Yeah, they're vegetarian.
Anything vegan.
Yeah, she's vegetarian. Yeah. So,
Tahu easy, right?
Yeah,
tahu.
tahu and tempeh, I eat that almost every day. It's my protein right there.
Great. So, terima kasih. Thank you so much for your time. Please, if you have time again and we can talk about other topics as far as politics in the US or maybe politics in Virginia, please, if you have time, please save some time for us. And we appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we'll be sharing the video from YouTube with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Okay.